Hi, I'm the Nandi Jacob, and I just sat down with We Talkin' TV. Hi, I'm Arobia Allen, also known as Jim, and I have the pleasure today of sitting down with B. Nandi Jacob. Hello.
Hi, Aerobia.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to sit with We Talkin' TV. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good. Now, my first question to you, usually I go into who is the person, right?
Right.
But your name strikes me.
Okay.
So, B as in like B-E-E, or does the B stand for something?
The B actually stands for Bianca. But do I look like a Bianca?
So no Bianca, just B.
Yeah, that's actually that's the name that was given to me by my parents.
Okay.
Bianca. And before I had a real problem with it because when I lived in Canada for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to work for the Minister of National Defense and Communications, and the little old Italian man used to come in and say, "Oh, Bella, you're so beautiful, but do you know that Bianca means white?" And that always used to like irritate me. And then, because I've always been so conscious of my African self, and
Yes.
it's like I went more into my spirituality, into understanding more about my people, I'm like, Malcolm X had an X.
Yes.
I'll have a B, so I'll honor that. But then I became Nandi, so
Okay.
yeah.
So was Nandi a name given to you, or was Nandi a name that you chose?
Nandi was a name that I chose.
Okay, does it have a meaning?
Well, it actually means mother, like great mother. And if you I don't know if you are familiar with the series, the Shaka Zulu series,
Mhm.
right? So Nandi was actually Shaka's mother.
Got it.
Right, so she was sort of like a mother of a nation, and I just really liked the name Nandi, and I felt like a Nandi, and
You just created like some very nostalgic memories for me from my childhood. And I'm not going to go into them because I'm trying to keep a little bit of mystery behind my age. But
I think you just blew it.
It's alright. It's not really a mystery.
Okay.
But yeah, that's yes. I do remember the Shaka Zulu series very much so in my household.
Yes.
You spoke about cultural backgrounds, and we're sitting in front of a very beautiful bookshelf, right? We're going to get into why you're sitting down with me for We Talkin' TV, but I just want to go into how long you have been in tune with knowing who you are culturally, and where does that derive from? Is that how you were brought up, or is that something that you wanted to, that was where you wanted to travel yourself, your personal?
I don't know. Sometimes I think it's just, as we're thinking here, the word instinctive came to me. That in many ways, that connection to culture has always been instinctive for me. And I've literally always felt like an immigrant. I was born in England, and, I was a child of, those colonialists, let me change that. Those Caribbean people who went to the motherland.
Okay.
Right, and then things always got so hard, and then they would mail the children back to the Caribbean. So I always say that my father actually, because my mother, she was not a part of my life in my early life. I always said that my father mailed me backwards across the Atlantic. So I went to Trinidad when I was 5 years old. And so I got really in tune with the Trini culture. And, it's so funny that I lived there from just 5 to 15, and it never left me. That's where, even when I work, I always work from that Caribbean space. And then when I was 15, I went to Canada, and I lived there for many years until I came to America. So in many ways, I've always felt displaced, like sort of othered, and so my connection has always been, even though I haven't touched the soil yet, hopefully by next year, I've always felt the connection to like my Africanness, my African center, to the motherland. Because everything else is always shifting, always moving. But that is a constant, because I can trace that. And, I can't trace my exact lineage as to what family I came from, before people were enslaved. but I know that's where the connection goes. So I've always identified with there, and right from the perspective of an other, because, literally that's how I've always felt.
So you've named 3 regions. You've named, we're here in Brooklyn, New York.
Mhm.
You've been to Canada. You've lived and worked
Yes.
there. London, or England,
Yes,
you
England,
said.
yes.
And now, you said, and Trinidad.
And Trinidad, yes.
Is your family's background Trinidad?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, both my parents, my mother and my father, are from Trinidad.
Okay.
My grandparents are from Grenada and St. Vincent, because a lot of in Trinidad you would find like a lot of people have parents
Yes.
from
Different places.
different places.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they migrated there
Yeah,
as well.
yes.
So, hence the port.
Yeah. I've always been porting, teleporting almost. Yeah.
Now, the fact that we're sitting in front of your bookshelf kind of just leads people into why we're sitting down with you. Are you a writer?
Yes.
Okay. Like, of more than just the fact that we're sitting down with you to discuss your web series, are you an author?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I've written. Actually, the biggest body of my work, and that would be like under Bianca Jacob. Yeah. I worked in Toronto for, as I said, a very long time as a journalist, activist journalist,
Okay.
and just mainstream journalist as well. So that was my first background, my first foray into writing, and I spent a lot of time there. And then I also wrote a lot of academic type essays. So
Mhm.
like I've been published by University of London Press, and things, even, and that's why I'm living here. But I've also written a novel called The True Nanny Diaries, which looked at 5 Caribbean women babysitters living right there in Manhattan. So I've done that, and I have about 5 or 6 plays that I've also written, that have been produced, and so forth. And then, of course, now I'm going into the world of the web, the world of film, with my series, the Green Card, A Love Story. Yeah, so...
Now, I'm sure our viewers are very intrigued, and I'm going to tap into the
Mhm.
fact that you kind of breezed past it, but I think it's very important for people to know that novels are still being written about the nanny.
Mm-hmm.
In what year did you write that?
That was about 7 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in reference to a novel like The Help, that
Right.
is out and then becomes a motion picture and gets all of this renowned, and that culture of professionalism, let's say, still exists now, and it's something that's like a page turner.
It's funny that you would say that, and hopefully maybe I'll be able to put my hands on my novel there, because it's also on my shelf, and show it to you. But when I wrote The True Nanny Diaries, it was actually almost like an answer to the Nanny Diaries. I don't know if you remember that one that came out, the Nanny that was even before The Help, the Nanny Diaries. And I had come from Toronto, and I was here trying to figure out, okay, what happens now? And I started babysitting, and it was very rough, especially like I was in one family first, and that was pretty cool, And then I started with another family, and they had 2 boys, and one of which was autistic. And I kept telling the mom, I said, listen, you should really get him checked out and so forth. But she didn't want to do that, because then, the boy wouldn't be perfect if she did that. So literally one of my tasks would be to get him to do his homework before I left. And sometimes that would take like 2 hours, because he just couldn't like even focus in to do it. He would be like all over, and I would have to sometimes so I can go home, because it's not overtime pay, right? So I could go home, I would like literally put my hand over his hand, trying to get him to write what he needs to, and all that, right? So it was a stressful time, and there are other things that happened. And I used to hang out with some of the other babysitters, we used to hang at Columbus Circle.
Okay.
Right, that little place there. So, we would take the kids on the grounds of Columbia, and that's where they would play, and we would be hanging out and so forth. And then I always sort of, when the novel came out, the Nanny Diaries, I said, these aren't the women I'm meeting. You understand? The woman, the 2 young white girls just babysitting for a little extra $1, is not the woman, doesn't represent the women who are truly doing this work.
Yes, the bulk of
Right.
this profession.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so I was, at the time I was also in college, and I was telling my professor, I'm like, this is not fair, this is not right, this is not the proper representation. And she said, Nandi, you write so well, and you're in the trenches with the nannies. People pay for this kind of ethnographical research. That's how she looked at it. British woman. And that's how I started, like, really, putting my thoughts together, hence the True Nanny Diaries. And, like, even when you look at, like, some of the reviews on Amazon, women who were in that profession told me that it has been literally life-changing for them. Like, it sort of, like, gave them a true picture of what their own life was like that they weren't even considering.
Mm-hmm.
And one woman wrote that the year she read the True Nanny Diaries is the last year she babysat. Because, it brought that kind of awareness to her. So it's not to cast any kind of aspersions on a profession or anything like that, but just to know that,
an account is important.
Yeah, and to document. And that's what I feel like in many ways I have done various types of writing, and as I said, I'm looking at new mediums now, but for me, but it has always been for me to be able to document what we are to this place, and all these other ports that we travel to, and there's this whole demonization of the immigrant and the other, but I don't even want to say contribute in that sense, but who we are and what we stand for and what we have been able to do. Just document it. I'm not even talking about contribution yet, but just to say, because if you're being honest and you look at this, you will see a fair account of what we have contributed. So all that needs to be done is the documentation, and that's why I'm here. To explore, document, say who we are, and and what we stand for.
Now I'm gonna go out and come back in, and I'm gonna ask you, even after that, what is your take on immigration right now when it comes to how immigrants are being handled and depicted right now?
Many times I don't even want to look at the news.
No, me either.
It's like
it's
really
hard.
yeah. So because of what I do, sometimes I skim and I may read an article here or there. And even this weekend I was having a very interesting conversation with a white woman. And the thing is, I think a lot of Americans really don't understand what this conversation really is about. So we talk about immigration and people coming here and they're doing all this stuff and they're taking our jobs and all the other things that purportedly immigrants do. But then we're not looking at some of the policies of the West in terms of how they're interfering with these countries and dabbling in their economics and how they're able to manage their own people and feed their people and all that stuff, which a lot of that's what's prompting many people to migrate. And this is historically, so when my father left Trinidad in 1959 to go to England, and my mother went shortly thereafter, it's like, many times it's like just the ceiling. And just like everybody else, you want to be self-affirming, self-actualized, self-realized, the fullness of your potential. And sometimes you're there on your island and you're just kind of figuring out, there must be something else. Because I did my common entrance, which is the exam to help you advance to high school. Maybe I did well, maybe I didn't really do that well. But then now, what am I going to do? Because I'm home, literally doing nothing, counting my fingers when the day, So maybe I could come out, I could babysit, I can be able to get money, I could send it back home, I can build there's so much.
Yes.
But, so we have to really look at immigration holistically, and that's not what's being done, to see how Western policies can be influencing what happens in the country that's causing people to migrate. If people are happy, they don't go anywhere. And then a lot of what happens is not in the control of the leadership of the country. It's all, we have a global economy. It's all tied into what the West says, We had at one time, let's say, thriving banana industries in some countries in the Caribbean. That was literally just taken away, So there's a lot. So I feel the conversation is not a fair conversation, but that people really don't know. As I was speaking to the woman this weekend, they really don't know what the conversation is about. They just have part of the conversation, that there are these people here and they're undocumented and they're taking our jobs. They committing crimes, which you know that's not even true. That's the immigrants are the least likely people to be committing crimes. But so the conversation is really warped, and somehow the facts, the real information, the totality of the information is coming out. So when I watch it, I say, oh, like in my mind, I'm thinking, here's another one-sided account of something that, and I just try to like ignore it in many ways.
Do you feel like the narrative is coming from somewhere that's not Brooklyn and it's being pushed forcefully? Because I want to say in a town where it's really desolate and they're below poverty, that if I need a job and this person has a job, I don't want to do the job. Let's be 100, right? I don't want to do the job, but this person has the job, and I live in a town where there is hardly any employment. And now this is my narrative where I am. If there's more other places than New York, because we're like, what are you talking about? Like, we're not having that issue. Do you think that that's the narrative that's being pushed to enforce how we're looking at immigration in cities like New York, where that's really not how we feel, or Los Angeles? These cities don't have this issue. We don't really want to scale buildings, and as a population, like that job is being done by the people that want to do that job. That is the employment that they have, and that's what they want to do. Do you feel like we're being forced to take on that narrative and look at it, if we're being blindsided, to take on that narrative and be able to be persuaded, like, okay, maybe they are taking our jobs?
Okay, so you mean if there is like, a building to wash windows, right, in another city, and the people who are doing it are from another country and may not be, but there are other jobs too, because like, let's say here in New York, let's say some of the babysitting jobs, some of the elder care, some of the jobs there are jobs here that literally people don't want to do, and immigrants are the one doing it as well. Is that comparative?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So but then somehow, even though these jobs are necessary and they're being done because Americans are not doing it, immigrants are doing it, it's still being used to demonize the immigrants for the very jobs that Americans don't want these jobs, but then somehow immigrants shouldn't have them.
Right.
But then there's a funny line actually later on in my web series where the character, the mother-in-law, comes up and she's sitting minding her own business on the steps of the Brooklyn Museum. That's, I think, in episode 4 or so. And a woman comes up, and a white woman comes up with a baby, and she starts playing with the baby. And apparently it's the first time the baby ever smiled, and the baby is 7 months old, and they were saying something was wrong with the baby. And as the baby smiled with her, she offered to hire her. Right? So the mother-in-law now, she goes home and she's telling her son, oh, I just got a job. And he's saying, like, what kind of job? Babysitting. And this is the money. And he said, Mom, you can't take the job because you're going to be, undocumented. You're not authorized to work here. And she's like, but an American gave me the job. So how you can tell me that it's not a good job when an American gave the job to me?
Yes.
And that's the whole point.
Yes. Exactly.
They're not just, where are these, who's hiring? And so there's obviously a labor shortage in this arena. But then at the same time, we need to demonize these people. Look how many politicians got caught with hiring domestic workers without papers.
Yes.
It's just so known and so open. So I just feel, I don't know what the narrative is about really. Like to maybe turn people's eyes from something else, like a detour, a diversion.
I'm just, because I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I really don't. I'm not going to allow myself to understand it. I hear it. I'm taking it in, but I'm not going to allow myself to understand it. And so I sometimes want to ask people, like, what do you think the narrative is on it? Because I don't get it. I don't get it. I just wanted to get your intake on that. I want to go into the web series.
Okay.
But this book that's sitting here in between us strikes me to ask you, who is your favorite author and genre of writing?
Okay, so, well, I guess it speaks for itself, right? So Zora Neale Hurston, that's my favorite writer.
Is she in fact your favorite writer?
I just this weekend I had this event where I had to present as a celebrity figure, and that's who I chose. Because you see her quote, "You speak so you can speak again," and that's important. And even for in terms of the work I do, telling that immigrant story, because if we don't speak, we will never be able to speak again. And for me, even bringing in Caribbean people into the conversation, there's a whole immigration conversation that's going on, and we're not a part of it. So what I loved about Zora, she was just so fabulous, but she also wrote in a dialect. So she wasn't interested in having all her formal British or American writing. I don't know what American writing is exactly. the English language. She wasn't tied to that. She was tied to, she was writing for her people, and she was writing in the voice of her people.
Yes.
And she just put that dialect down, and she was, that to me is one of the most powerful things about her characters, her stories. It really resonates with me. So Their Eyes Were Watching God is my favorite novel. Of course, there's Jonah's God Vine and other. I like all her novels. I think I have most of them, here. But yeah, she was powerful. And in terms of Caribbean literature, I like Sam Selvon.
Okay.
Again, he was a Trinidadian, went to London. He was one of those who, like my father and mother, went to England in the 50s and made a life there. So he has a book called Moses, The Lonely Londoners. And that's when he was talking about like the immigrants, Caribbean immigrants coming into London and just trying to carve out that early life and what a struggle it was. I never really understood the struggle. I know a lot of people who went to England in the early days from Trinidad, and I don't know too much about the Jamaican and other countries' experience, but from Trinidad, they never ever made it back home. My mother was one. When she went to England in the early 50s, the next time she went back home, it was like 5 years later when her mother died. And that was the only time that she touched Trinidad soil. She went back to England, and that was it. Because it was very hard for them, and he was able to document in real time what the experience was for those early Londoners. And then, of course, now in England, we have the whole, I have a book on that too, the whole problem with they would be the Windrush generation. And literally, if my mom was alive today, they would be taking her papers away. Because in the Windrush generation, there was something about, I just wish I could I should have, if I knew we were going to hear all day, I was going to just bring out all my immigration literature. That's a powerful book. But if
you're going to force people to go on
the Windrush. Yeah, it's called the Windrush. The Windrush. Yeah, so basically, if it was, if she was alive today after living in England for like 50 years, being a nurse, a registered nurse for most of her life, contributing so much, they would be trying to take her papers today because there was some issue with the documents at the time. And then it came up about 2 years ago. They started like literally deporting people who were living in England for 50 years, worked all their life.
Where are they going to go?
Where are they going to go? So again, it's that whole idea of the immigrant, and, it's when we need you, that's good. When we don't need you anymore, time to go. If we need you as a talking point, that's you. We need you to look like the pariah so people can divert their eyes from where the real issues are. That's you. Scapegoat, always operating on the bottom tier of society as though it's not a whole person. And that is even with the web series. My main character, Petra, she came here from the Caribbean. Basically, her American friend is asking her, hopefully you guys get to show the audience some clips, is asking her, where, why are you, and she's laughing, even though it's her best friend, because she still doesn't get it. She says, why did you leave? What, you vexed you overstayed your vacation? And she goes, no, it's going to work out. This is America. Basically she loves America. She said, I needed a higher ceiling to reach for. And the friend said, oh, the ceiling in jail ain't but 6 feet. You understand what I mean? So literally, even her friend cannot really see her as a whole and a whole person who just wants to live and be and to be able to move freely, and I think that's a tragedy. And I so far I've been able to present a sympathetic figure. At least that, that's what I've been hearing. And, I just want to be able to show a real life. So even with that, she's trying to get married, she's trying to do all these things, but still to be able to use the comedy, but to make sure she stays sympathetic, to be able to show someone who is more than being undocumented. Like she's still living a life, and she gets to live one, and what that means, so yeah. So this is what she did as well, and I feel if I could just do that even like an iota as well, then, I could at least be able to serve my community as in the same way I feel the role I feel I came to do. Finally to accept that, I don't want to write in any other thing than the Caribbean voice.
Gotcha.
And that's okay, because first I used to think, oh my God, I should be writing, I don't know, trying to write the next Hemingway.
That's not who you are.
Yeah.
It has to start where you are, where your passion is, what you breathe.
Yeah, it's my heart,
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So now you gave the viewers just a little bit of an overview on there being a main character, her issues and her struggles, creating this green card.
Yes.
Plot, right? Let's just talk exactly about the web series period. How did you come up with the cast and crew that you're working with, or who are the important players on the web series so that they know what they can expect, and how many episodes of the web series is officially out?
Okay. All right. So let's start from the end.
Okay.
So far we've put up one episode.
Okay.
And we have one going up in 2 weeks.
And this is on YouTube?
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
And we just got a whole arrangement to be on Roku and I'm not too familiar with the different platforms.
That's amazing.
It's going to be on Amazon.
That's awesome.
And a couple other things. So we're going to be also working with Caribbean Buzz TV as well.
Very nice.
So it's going to be all something, wider. Because all the little mechanics of it is new to me. But so that's one episode so far. So we had a big launch party and everything, and it was really well received. So the major players. So there's some actors that I've worked with in the past that I was really, really impressed with their work and stuff. So a couple of them are back.
Okay.
Which is Asha John. She plays the main character of Petra, and then we have Cameron Bowler. He plays Philo. Those are the two main characters. So literally Petra. And she has a traditional story that we will all know about. People who are of Caribbean descent will know about this story. So she was literally like the top of her class in physics in Trinidad, doing really well and everything. But America came calling. She wanted to do that, came up here, literally overstayed her vacation visa. So for me, when I was playing with the plot, at first I wanted to put her as a dreamer. So she came here with her mother. So like to put it in her, okay, well, it's not her fault. But then is there really a fault? So I decided to make this is a decision that she made. She came here. She wanted to go to school. She wanted to do all these things. She overstayed. She made a human. She's a human. She made a mistake. She made a decision. She made a decision, and this is the consequences of the decision she made. So she wanted to be a biomedical engineer. Extremely bright, all that. She is, with the opening montage, she's in a situation where she is taking care of a pretty abusive woman, and that's as a home health aide, right? So we have Petra. Then there's always a hope that the green card will happen, because she has a boyfriend for the last 6 years, and they're gonna get married, right? But then again, the next door neighbor, who's American Marvel, is like, Petra, a different dude with a done been give you that green card, right? But 6 years they're together, and the thing about this guy, he thinks he's going to be like the next Marshall Montano or Buju or something. So she get up. So, but literally what he does right now is sing in the subway.
Okay.
Right? So she's like paying all the bills. She's just,
He's trying to be discovered.
He's trying to be discovered. Meanwhile, she works at as a home health aide. She works in the subway. Sorry, what am I saying? The subway. She works in a hair salon.
Okay.
As well, and she also sells soup on Flatbush.
Okay.
Right. So like she has three things going on. We have like some of the images we have of her. You know, she collects bottles. You know, the plastic bottles.
Yeah.
Like you know, so we see her like putting the bottles in to get her receipt to go and make the. You know.
Yep.
So like she's living
all the daily struggles of existing and making it happen.
Right, and that's what we want to make sure we show that
Yes.
that is the reality. This is what this woman, you know, has, you know, is going through. This is what her life is. So I'm really excited to have Susan Olton Kennedy as another one of our actors. You know, I've worked with Susan over the years as well, and she's playing Mrs. Anthony, or the mother-in-law.
Okay.
So she actually comes from Trinidad for the wedding, but she has a whole other plot in mind.
Of course she does.
Yes, and she brings this guy up named Batica. And that has to do with some land that Philo, actually his father left for him in Trinidad, that if he gets married, he can't inherit the land. So she has a whole
plot
within the plot, and then you know, and she's the one also who ends up with that job, getting offered a babysitting job in America.
Okay.
You know, and I mentioned briefly the next door neighbor. Sorry, the character of Batica is played by Marvin George. And the next door neighbor, that's Aaliyah Pierre, and she plays the African American character Marva, who is like the best friend of Petra, you know.
Okay.
So we have a really nice cast, a very vibrant cast, and so far so good. I'm very excited about it, and the idea for the green card. The green card is actually based on a play I did very successfully. You know, for it had quite a few runs, called Mother-in-Law.
Okay.
So Petra was also a character there, but she never had a green card story. So what ended up happening is that the play evolved over the years, and Petra got this green card story, and it just took off. So yeah, so that's basically how it came up, and we're gonna be shooting. The idea with so my company is called Nandi Studios.
Okay.
And I'm working with my wonderful director, Roderick Warner, and his company is called Conflicted Genius. So
great name.
Yeah, I know. Yes, so Nandi Studios in association with Conflicted Genius. So we're the ones presenting Mother-in-Law. Green Card. Green Card, a love story, and so basically our idea is to tell this story in 4 seasons.
Okay.
So this season is gonna have 5 episodes. So we're gonna tell the story in these 4 seasons. Then we're gonna start telling another story. We don't want to like take the story to more than 4 seasons. There's an arc. Then there are other immigration stories that we want to tell, that we're also gonna do in 4 seasons. So basically, we're gonna keep on changing the stories as we go along.
Got you.
Yeah.
To get a different account of the green card process and immigration period.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's so many. The next story involved a guy who was just minding his own business. He's undocumented as well.
Okay.
About to go to a shop for his mother's funeral that he cannot go to because he's undocumented. When a car pulls up, and it's literally law enforcement agency, almost kidnap him off the street, take him away, and he has to bring down a major company, and they promise him if he gets to do that, if he does that, then he's going to get his green card. So that's a whole other story. That's a little bit more, even more like dramatic and...
Yes. Now, have you started shooting for that one as well?
No, not yet.
And have you done a pilot for it?
Not yet.
So we got the exclusive information on
Yes,
this now.
we haven't even discussed it on that.
That's what we do.
I mean, that one is something else. That is something else. That's a plot within a plot within a plot.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So,
And then you have 2 more projections that you're gonna put into play.
Yeah. So it's like we're gonna stay in this medium, telling these stories. The point is to tell the stories and to make them as entertaining as possible. But to keep the underlying idea of immigration.
Okay.
It's an immigration story. But we want to be able to. We want to create an access point for anyone. And what I found is I had a review from a friend of mine. Her boss looked at it and he said, as a middle-aged white male, he couldn't identify with the characters, but he felt very strongly for Petra and her plight.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is the point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so of course, you know, in his, you know, upscale Long Island life he's living, his age, he's never met these characters that we have. But we want people to be able to identify with Petra and to say, hey, you know, she deserves that shot. Like, this is not what I thought it was. And if we can do that, then we've done our job.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes people don't need sympathy. Sometimes empathy is enough.
Yes. Yes.
You know, that you can at least identify that there is an issue going on with someone in the world, and it may be connected closely to me and I have no idea.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the point.
Important.
So we do that, you know, I'm good. You know, yeah.
I'm going to ask you right quick too, you did the breakdown of Petra's story coming from outside of another story. So I'm sure maybe creating her process of character was easier for you than the others. But what is your process for writing? If you have one.
Okay, oh yeah, well, you know, in terms of actually,
because I'm sure it's hard to just put together a web series, period. But to be an author and to decide that you're going to transition into writing and for screen, maybe a little different. So what does that process entail for you?
I think it's the same with doing this web series. It's the same. It works the same even when I have a play called Flambeau, which I promise is going to go to Broadway. But even with that and the novel, the process usually it starts with an idea, something that occurs to me. And I usually don't write it down, because if in a week it's still there, then that's when I write it down. So sometimes it may be like a character, it may be something that, you know, that pulls me, a saying, something pulls me to the table. And then I start writing. What I realize is that I can start, I don't, like some writers actually, you know, follow the structure, you do this, you do that first, then that. I don't do any of that. I just start writing. What I find, if the idea is legitimate, after a while, it takes some writing, probably I'm at 7,000 words and I'm going, the characters start taking over the story. So then I find I'm going to end up like losing a lot of what I've already written, but that's okay. When I wrote, so it becomes that I'm not actually writing. The story is writing itself and my fingers are moving.
Yes.
Right? And you know what I know how that's true? Like sometimes I write something and I laugh and I say, oh my God, that's so funny. But it's not like a thought that was in my head and then I thought about it and then I wrote it. I find out about it the same time it goes on the paper. When I wrote the True Nandi Diaries, there are 4 female characters. There's Vali, the main character, who is, well, I won't tell you where she's from, but Vali, the main character. There's Madame Lucian, there's Ava, and there's Monica. I'm writing this whole book. I wrote the book. I finished the whole first draft. I edited the second draft. And I'm like, something is not right with Monica. Like that she was a character that I couldn't get a handle on. And then one night I was sleeping. I hear, hey. Like literally in my dream. Hey. And I answered. I said, what? And I hear, me a Jamaican. And I said, who? Me, Monica. I had written her as a Trini. And that's why it didn't work. So I went back the next morning and then rewrote the character as Jamaican and it was perfect.
Got it.
You know, so she actually, the character actually came to me. I know I probably sound like nuts.
No, you don't. But you don't. Trust me. A lot of people will resonate. And this is why I ask these types of questions, because sometimes maybe someone wants to write something, maybe you spark something, maybe someone has writer's block, you know, or just wanting to start embarking on something. And it's good to hear someone's process of how they create, you know.
I think if you want to write, what you do is write. There's no substitute for it. That's all you do. You know, we can go to all the classes, we can do all that stuff, but unless you start to write, nothing gets done. And you don't get to figure out what your process is. You know, I've tried, you know, like outlining and all that stuff, you know. But usually I start outlining when I'm well into the story, like to more like to plot my points where I am. Because like writing that way doesn't really work for me. So it works for some writers, no. And yeah. But then like now with the web series, we have the 5 episodes for the first season already written.
Okay.
But even with certain dynamics that happen in the first season, I'm having to look at this. And sorry, in the first episode, I'm having to look at the second episode to make sure there's that continuity. Because things happen in the process itself, and you rewrite things, and the third episode is so funny. It's like really, really good, but I still want to make sure that that Petra's story stays front and center. So basically, when mother-in-law comes in the door, she looks at her daughter-in-law for the first time and say, "I hear you don't have your papers." Right? So we don't deal with it that much in the third episode, but I had to come in there and make sure that it's still on the minds of the viewers.
And they don't get lost.
Yeah. So we don't get lost with the all the drama that's about to happen.
I got
We don't get lost.
I'm so excited to follow this story. Do you have anything you want to leave with the We Talking viewers?
What I want to leave is that please, I don't even know if I want to say follow Instagram, because I'm just such another.
Well, they're gonna already see it below us.
Oh yeah, okay, good. So follow the Instagram. Follow the Instagram. The other thing, one of the things that we didn't talk about that is important is that funding this thing is always a struggle. But we did do a GoFundMe, so we do have a GoFundMe. And so, if people see it and like it and they want to drop something in our GoFundMe, that would be really good. And also, this is a great vehicle for people who may have products, like for product placement. So, in the first episode, if you would see that Philo is in front of Trini Breakfast Shed, the restaurant on Church Avenue, the great restaurant in front of Church Avenue. So, literally, we worked with him as a product placement. So, you may have a drink, a lotion, or something, a business or something, and we could find a way to either to incorporate it. Shoot at the location, the character could be drinking the whatever it is, and then, you see the name, that sort of a thing. So the funding, like to be able to keep this going, is funding. I mean, one of the stance I took is to make sure and pay my actors. So this, so and even like paying my actors, and we've been very fortunate. Mr. Derek Noel, that's where the space at which we shoot, he has, afforded us to be able to use the space, and that has been a blessing because I couldn't pay for space.
Gotcha.
So this is all what I should say a volunteer effort. It's a affair of the heart, to make sure our stories are front and center. So, however the community supports our show, they like it, they support it, that is the final thought I would like to leave, because I tell you, because these are the things that keep me up at night, but just knowing that I have there's no other way out but through, and I have to go through because, literally, if, speak so you can speak again. If I don't speak, like, what happens?
That's right.
The voice is so important.
I don't have anything else to say after that. I don't think we should close any other way then. It was absolutely perfect.
It was so
nice. Nandi Jacob.
Be Nandi,
Thank you so much for sitting down with Talking TV.
Yes.
And we'll look forward to following Greencard on YouTube and Roku and wherever else is going to show up soon.
Much. So Greencard, a love story.
Greencard, a love story.
Right.
Do not forget
Right.
after the
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.